Football League, Paul Tagliabue.
Welcome to the National Football League's 62nd annual college draft. Through a trade with the New York Jets, the St. Louis Rams have the first pick in this draft.
So after 4 months of saying the New York Jets are on the clock, for the last 48 hours, we could actually say the St. Louis Rams are on the clock. If you're wondering, and we anticipate that it will be, of course, Orlando Pace, in the 62-year history of the draft. Linemen that have gone number one. Ron Yeri, 68, Minnesota. By the way, I can't believe he's not in the Hall of Fame yet. Chuck Bednarik from Pennsylvania, picked by the Eagles in 49. He is in the Hall of Fame. And Kai Aldrich, 1939, Chicago Cardinals. I don't know. There are not many on that list. To pick a lineman right here, he ranks Orlando Pace ahead of your other Elite Five in this group of six, who will, in whatever order we see now, be the first six names we'll have today.
Well, these are the six players that are really definitely at the top of the draft board. These are the six that everybody tried to trade up to get. We had some premature trading with Oakland and Seattle. Oakland didn't get their man, Orlando Pace. St. Louis will. Sean Springs, a brilliant corner. Darrell Russell collapsed the pocket-type defensive tackle. Fullwear. Baltimore considered trading. They may keep the pick. Westbrook won a par almost with Springs, very physical. And Walter Jones. In time, Walter Jones could be better than Orlando Pace, if you can believe that.
We're already extrapolating, and here's the first big word of the day, that, you know, that this is where Pace will go. Let's look at the St. Louis Rams a little closer. Second-year quarterback, right. Tony Banks, athletic, so moves around, but he gets sacked, 59 times, fumbles, most ever. He needs blocking.
He really does, Chris. And I think the important thing is that Tony Banks has got to feel comfortable with what's up front. I mean, look at last year's draft. St. Louis, they wind up taking Lawrence Phillips first. They wind up taking Eddie Kinnison second, and then Tony Banks third. You take a look at the Rams' offense. Look at all the 28s, 27s, 29s. Fumbles lost 30th, sacks 30th, interceptions 27th. That's a product of the sacks coming over. Turnovers. Everything revolves around the fact that their quarterback was not productive. When you look at a non-productive quarterback, I think the first place you have to go and look is the offensive line. I think this is an excellent pick for St. Louis to continue to build the future of this franchise. They took a chance last year. At one point, they started 6 guys on offense who were rookies. That's a big risk that Rich Brooks took. Now he gets to see the fruits of his labor from someplace else, unfortunately, and Vermeil gets the benefit.
Lawrence Phillips is, of course, that's another story with the St. Louis Rams. The pick made last year before Vermeil was there. When he got out of spending time off-season for a transgression, Dick Vermeil was the first guy to see him there. Dick Vermeil wants to embrace this kid, doesn't he?
He really does. I think, of course, Mel and I had our difference of opinion regarding Lawrence Phillips.
I'm not going to tee that up quite yet.
I still think he's going to be okay, Mel. I don't care what you say. And I think Lawrence Phillips will have grown up. The problems now, I believe, are behind him. And Dick Vermeil has basically sat down with this young man and said, listen, I need you to step up and be the guy that everybody expects you to be. Tony Banks proved he could get the job done. Eddie Kinnison proved he could get the job done. The only guy left in the 3 that were taken last year is Lawrence Phillips. And I really believe that Coach Vermeil and the veterans on that staff, Jerry Rome is the coordinator, does a great job with young people. I think they can bring them along and bring this kid to the level they need to. They've got all the pieces on the offensive side of the ball to get things done that they want to be productive.
Well, if they draft Orlando Pace, then comes the problem. Now we got to sign him. And this could be difficult. That's something that, you know, he did not make the trade with him already signed. Let's go out to St. Louis with our Mark Malone. And Mark, good morning out there still. And I've got to wonder what the Rams are feeling. Do they think they're going to get into a big battle in the trenches over signing Orlando Pace?
Well, I've had some long discussions, Chris, with both Dick Vermeil and John Shaw, the general manager here, about that very subject. They don't think it's going to be too bad. They think the best thing that happened was they followed, or that Orlando Pace followed Keyshawn Johnson, a skill player, #1 pick. They know what the cap number is going to be, probably by Monday for the #1 overall pick. And they'll go ahead and start negotiations. There's been a lot of concern because Kevin Poston, who represents Orlando Pace, also represented Tshimanga Biakabatuka last year, the last player signed in the NFL. Dick Vermeil said, listen, we want to get this thing done. We're going to be fair about it. But the other thing about this whole thing, Chris, is the fact that they're talking about investment in this franchise for the long run. If this kid is 3 weeks late getting in here because of a contract situation, then that's okay. They understand that this guy is going to be a great player for a very, very long time. They're going to try to be fair with him. And again, I think under this new system, there's going to be a cap number for this player. And the fact that he's following Keyshawn Johnson, I think, makes it a very attractive situation for Orlando Pace. I know Vermeil has been in discussions with Orlando. They've talked several times since they've made the trade from 6 to 1, and he feels very comfortable about it. He says, all I've got to do is coach him. This franchise, Chris, has got to sign him.
Well, we didn't think that moving up to the number 1 slot mark, and of course, why not? It's your dime, if you will. It's your 15 minutes of fame, and that's what you get in every pick in the first round. If this is the first year that you're watching the draft, second round is 10 minutes, third and et cetera rounds are 5 minutes each. But perhaps, and I heard this morning that maybe Detroit was at least inquiring to go up all the way to number 1. Perhaps, Mark, the Rams could be getting other calls at this moment, even though they went all the way up to number 1 with a plan in mind. Would they entertain getting out of there at this point?
Well, I'll tell you what, I talked to Dick Vermeil, and we spent some time last night and talked about this very subject. As of late last night, he had not had a phone call from anybody, no inquiries. Now, it could very well be there had been rumors that Detroit was looking to move up and take a couple of picks there. So it's possible. I don't think so. Dick said that it would have to knock his socks off if he was going to trade this pick. He actually wanted to go for 2 quality defensive football players in this draft, and he thought by having the number 1 pick overall, that would give him the ability to do that. But he said he felt comfortable with taking Orlando Pace because in his mind, he was the most dominating player in this draft. There was actually no question about that. Chris?
Well, I don't know that anyone has knocked his socks off. They hope that Pace can knock the socks off of those that he blocks the pick is in. Orlando, one of about a dozen players here in New York, maybe a couple more.
With the first pick of the draft, the St. Louis Rams select Orlando Pace, tackle, Ohio State.
Six and a half, 335. You saw his athletic ability. And as we watch the congratulations for a young man that you had a feeling number 1 pick was a possibility even after a year ago in 95. Just a little thought. I mean, he's a wonderful kid.
The Oakland Raiders are now on the clock, selecting the second pick.
How many years could he excel in the league? You look at him as a 10, 12-year player, Mel.
Well, you have to, Chris. You're taking him number 1 overall in the draft. They had that major need at the left tackle position. They needed help. They went out and only gave up a 3, a 4, and a 7 to get the best player in this draft. Started 38 straight games at Ohio State. Never missed a practice. Great football player. And as I said before, the one thing in this draft, Oakland and Seattle traded up very early in the process 2 weeks ago. Oakland wanted Orlando Pace. It did not work out. So you have to believe that Al Davis and the Raiders are not happy to see St. Louis deal up to the Jets' number 1 pick and take Orlando Pace.
Well, certainly Orlando's signability is one question. But if I'm Orlando's agent, I don't worry about signing right now. I'm on the phone to IHOP or Aunt Jemima because this guy invented or reinvented the pancake block. So if you're listening out there, there's an early tip from someone who cares. Get the deal first with the commercials, then move on perhaps and sign with the Rams. And we hope that there is no trouble and that he gets in on time. And I don't know that he's going to be wearing number 1, by the way, Joe. When
I think they've got to put 3 numbers if they're going to go 1. It'll be 111 for this guy. You know, the other thing, too, and just looking at the film clips that we had on him, there's instinctive things that you see in this young man. For example, as he ran down the field with that last block that we saw, he didn't look back to find the runner. He looked back to locate him, but then he went on and made the block, never looking back. So that's the kind of stuff that it's very difficult for young guys to learn. He brings a lot of natural instincts to the position, as well as a big appetite, Boomer, which you mentioned.
He certainly does. And although he says, he doesn't really like the pancakes for breakfast, he prefers waffles. I mean, that is it, but he can have whatever he needs. Well, next on the clock are the Oakland Raiders. They originally wanted Orlando Pace, but after, as Mel described, the trade up by the St. Louis Rams, the Raiders maneuvering of a couple of weeks ago to acquire the pick from New Orleans here at number 2. Now they have already just the second pick of the draft. Decisions, and phone calls certainly coming from a couple of teams. Let's go to Miami with Chris Mortensen. And Mort, the Raiders have gotten some calls, obviously from Detroit. That's one. What else is going on, and who will be calling them in the next 12 minutes?
Well, I think the Lions are probably having a final discussion with the Raiders about moving up from the 5 spot. Last night, they were willing to offer a 3rd-round pick. I spoke to Bobby Ross, the Lions' new head coach, a little while ago. He's quite comfortable with staying at 5, so he's not going to overpay to go to 2. They would take Darrell Russell, the USC defensive tackle, if they moved into the Raiders spot. And if the Raiders can't trade, they apparently are going to take Darrell Russell. And some people will say they got Chester McLaughlin, they got Russell Maryland. Well, they would play Darrell Russell possibly at defensive end. And, of course, the Seattle Seahawks holding their breath that they don't take Sean Springs, Chris.
Well, could there be a possibility with the Jets involved here going up, or are they going to swiftly move down?
I don't think so. I think that scenario is too complex, and I really believe this. If the Raiders move, it'll be with the Lions.
Well, we'll keep pace on this one, no pun intended, but the man that's just drafted Orlando Pace is Dick Vermeil. He's come out to visit with our Mark Malone, and Vermeil's first draft pick in 15 years. He's got to be excited, Mark.
Well, I'm sure he's extremely excited. He has been away from the game for a long time. I think a lot of people wondered, Coach, whether or not you could pull this deal off. You did. And you told me you'd make this pick very early, but then you were on the clock for a while. Were there any phone calls, anybody at all interested in this pick?
No, nobody really called. And we had made up our mind really this morning when we came in here after visiting with you last night and that kind of stuff, that really Orlando is the guy. Orlando is going to set the pace here in St. Louis.
In terms of his signability, you and I have talked about that. That's not really a concern for you, and that's interesting because obviously this guy's going to demand a lot of money.
No question, and he'll deserve it. And we'll make him earn it, too, believe me. But I think I have to worry about coaching him. I have to worry about everybody else we put on the field. Jay Zygmunt, who handles that. John Shaw will back it up. They'll get it done. Sooner or later, it will get done, and he will be on the field.
Currently on the depth chart, you have a former #1 draft pick in Wayne Gandy at left tackle. Is Orlando Pace your starting left tackle as of today?
Chances are he will be when we get him on the field, and we'll move Wayne over to the other side and compete at that right tackle spot, and maybe Wiegert inside at a guard. Really, this one move has strengthened our offensive line so much, and we have Gerald Perry here really getting ready to play football. It could be a very good offensive line.
Well, it's a big pick for St. Louis. They also signed 2 days ago John Gurrick, a former offensive guard for the Minnesota Vikings. They have a second pick coming up. It'll be the 8th overall in the second round. Probably be looking at defense. Now let's go back to New York and Chris.
All right, Mark, thank you. We're going to get up to Tom Jackson in a moment, but the Oakland Raiders apparently have made their decision. Have they hung up the phone on everybody? The card is up at the commissioner, and we shall see if this is Darrell Russell. Move him at defensive end, 20-year-old. Let's see if that's what the Raiders do, or do they make a move? Up to the podium and the commissioner.
With the second pick in the draft, the Oakland Raiders select Darrell Russell, defensive tackle, Southern California.
Oh, the air horns are in here.
Seattle Seahawks are now on the board with a choice obtained from Atlanta.
Well, let me tell you, two things have just happened with the Oakland Raiders taking Darrell Russell. First of all, they get a young man that usually plays inside but can play outside if they decide to keep McLaughlin, and they have an excellent front wall. But the Seattle Seahawks are very happy because Sean Springs, Pace's teammate at Ohio State, the corner, is who they wanted all along. Weren't sure they could get him at 3. That's probably where they're headed next, I would think. But now let's talk about Darrell Russell, who's, again, I mean, he's just a youngster.
He's a big kid. He's 320 pounds. He's a great athlete. He's only 20 years of age, so you know he's going to mature. He took some downs off, has to become more of a consistent, focused performer, but tremendous upside potential. Here he is at basically at right defensive end, and that's where the Raiders plan on utilizing him, getting to the quarterback, very agile, very quick for a base. Here he is inside, exploding to the quarterback. You know, getting after then quarterback Ron Powers with Notre Dame, controlling the middle. That's what he does so well. Here he's against the Huskies, just dominating that double team block and making a play. Fires into the backfield regularly. When this kid is on and he's motivated, he's a one-man wrecking crew. And I think what they have to do is harness that talent and motivate him. That's going to be Joe Bugel's responsibility. For Oakland, though, they get Russell, but they still don't have that offensive lineman for Jeff.
Well, what a segue to Joe.
Oh, my. And to me, I don't necessarily think that Russell is just going to stay in Oakland. Joe, when I look at a head coach, when a guy takes over, they like to get people they're comfortable with. I think of Vince Tobin and Tony Dungy last year. Both of them went for defensive people. Joe Bugel takes over as the offensive coach or the head coach. He's an offensive-minded coach. He's a line coach. I wouldn't be surprised if he still winds up with Walter Jones somehow, some way through the course of this particular draft. I don't believe the dealing is done. It just doesn't make sense for this to sit real comfortable with me. I think Chester McLaughlin is a superstar. I don't know whether or not Russell helps them get where they want to go. You invest so much money in Jeff George, you got to bring somebody in to protect him and look at the future of that particular side of the ball. So I'm not 100% convinced that we haven't seen the last of this movement here yet.
Well, one scenario could be that Walter Jones falls to number 6. The Jets take him. So then they make a deal. Either Russell for Jones or McLaughlin's involved. Meanwhile, the Seahawks, I got to think, it's Sean Springs. As that card has sprung up to the commissioner, it didn't take more than a couple of minutes. Seahawks, first of their 2 first-round selections. Number 3 here, number 12 in a while. Well, we told the card was up there. It can't be a pronunciation problem, right? Springs?
No, sort of a fairly simple word to get out.
Well, I got a team photo first. You got to do that first.
The commissioner actually is there. You just can't see him.
That's right. And he's, what, 6'5"?
That's right. He's behind Darryl Russell somewhere. You know, the amazing thing about Darryl Russell, when you look at him on film, he carries 320 pounds, Mel, but it's spread out over a big frame. I mean, he's a guy who could go, it looks like, maybe to 330 and still carry it comfortably.
He is huge. I mean, you look at a guy can really plug the middle, can do a heck of a job.
All right, here now is the Seahawks.
Third pick in the first round, the Seattle Seahawks select Sean Springs, defensive back, Ohio State.
Now, so the Buckeyes.
The Baltimore Ravens are now on the clock.
Buckeyes with 2 of the 3 first picks, and boy, Seattle, a sigh of relief. They had targeted him throughout. Sean Springs had no interceptions last year, but they didn't throw the ball at him. Now, some people say that he's rated about as high as any defensive back in the common draft. The highest anyone has gone is 3. Bruce Pickens went at 3 as a corner. Is he worthy of this high a choice?
He's definitely worthy, Chris. He may not be as good as Deion Sanders, but he's going to be close. He's certainly for Seattle. They got Willie Williams in free agency. They needed a big-time corner that they can match up against the opposition's top wide receiver and contain that player. You see him here, the right cornerback spot in man coverage. Look at the instincts, how quickly he locates the ball and makes the play. He really did a great job in the Rose Bowl when Keith Poole really shut him down, showed what kind of dynamic athletic ability he has. Then he has his individual workout. He runs a 4.36. It's a 39, 40-inch vertical jump, 19 reps, so you know he's strong. Here he is as a punt returner. Great ability in that area if you want to risk injury and use your number 1 corner. Also as a return man. Run support ability's average, decent tackler, but you're paying Sean Springs the big bucks to match up against the Jerry Rices and the big-time wide receivers that can beat you. That's his job, to tame those guys.
Well, Sean Springs from Silver Springs, Maryland. His dad, you may remember, running back, pretty good with the Dallas Cowboys, Ron Springs. It's in the bloodlines, and now he's the 3rd overall pick. We'll get back to discuss him a little bit. And the Baltimore Ravens on the clock. And will they keep this 4th pick? They've said for a while they want to bail out. Do they bail? Do they stay, or do they go? That's the question. So we roar on here in the Apple. Back in New York, and look at this new and improved, almost like the Hall of Fame wall there. And maybe one day Orlando Pace will be on the wall in the Hall of Fame. You can only hope, but certainly quite a ball club that we saw assembled behind us with the commissioner. I'd like a chance to coach that team. Well, card is in already. Do the Ravens keep the pick, or do they make a swing trade? They've said they dump out. This doesn't seem to indicate that they might. Let's go to the commissioner. It's the Peter Boulware spot.
With the 4th choice in the first round, the Baltimore Ravens select Peter Boulware, defensive end, Florida State.
Well, so much
Detroit
for
Lions
saying
are now on the clock.
Saying for weeks that they would dump out because of the cap. They had some offers, the Giants being one of them, Mel. Maybe he just looked too good at the end, right? They certainly need defense after squandering all those halftime leads last year.
Well, the offers weren't good enough. All they got was a 3 from the Giants and 3 from other clubs. They didn't get that 2nd-round pick and an offer that they wanted. Peter Boulware is just what they said they needed all year. A difference maker that can make everybody around him better. Great edge pass rusher. You see him here coming off the corner. A right defensive end. Good job off the edge. Blindside pressure. pressure. He's a special performer. He's going to come in ready to work. He's been a productive player game in and game out. Very strong, good functional strength in that 22, 23 reps, so that's not a concern. You see his athletic ability here against Florida, blocking a punt. This is a kid that can play some linebacker. Marvin Lewis, the defensive coordinator, worked out Peter Boulware, came to the conclusion he could be an outside linebacker. So don't count that out. They have McCrary to be the right end, and Burnett on the other side. Maybe initially they try Boulware at outside linebacker to plug a hole and see what happens.
Well, he's a smart player. Let's get that out there. His dad, a doctor in Columbia, South Carolina, where he is from. Sterling is quick to point out from the crib. But cap problems. Where's Baltimore? They're the closest team to being over the cap. Look at they're playing some of their players. Now, remember, these are guys not on the team anymore, but they still owe under the cap. Bad Moon Rising, a cool $3 million to Pepper Johnson. Of course, Eric Turner is still there. Leroy Horde is long gone. Tony Jones, now a Bronco. I mean, this is... They said they couldn't afford it. What are they going to have to do, Mel?
Well, what they're going to have to do is try to battle with Peter Boulware and his agent to get him into camp on time. Yeah, Jonathan Ogden got a heck of a deal last year with voidable years in that contract. He's going to want a similar contract. There's no question about that. We look at Jonathan Ogden's deal. That's what the agent for Peter Boulware is going to want. So it's going to be really tough for David Modell, Ozzie Newsome, Mark Modell to get him into camp on time because that's a key. As an outside, if he is an outside linebacker in this 4-3 defense, he's going to have a lot to learn. Playing in reverse, coverage responsibilities, a new position. So I think it's imperative, if that's the case, to get him into camp as quickly as possible.
Well, very quickly, the Detroit Lions are up there, and it's got to be the corner, Brad Westbrook, or Walter Jones, the tackle. These are the two next guys. Which ones do the Lions select?
With the fifth choice in the first round, the Detroit Lions select Bryant Westbrook, defensive back, University of Texas. Well, the New York Jets are now on the clock.
Oh, boy. And with that, cue the crowd. The Detroit Lions, I mean, in a division with the Super Bowl champion Packers and the great receivers at Minnesota, and they had to go, and he's a big corner. A smart pick for Detroit and Bobby Ross.
It really is. The first 5 picks have gone basically the way everybody wanted them to go. They're getting people they want in need positions. Pace fills the offensive line position. Russell in Oakland, like I said, I don't think that's completed yet. Springs to Seattle. Boulware to Baltimore. Detroit to Westbrook goes there. Offensively, the Lions are going to be really fine. I mean, you got Barry Sanders, Herman Moore, Johnny Morton, Scott Mitchell's comfortable, a new coordinator in Sly Grooms, Mark Trestman working with the quarterback. They know they needed defensive help. They know they need a tough one-on-one cover guy. That's who they got, Mel.
Well, Mel, he's about 6 feet tall, about the same physical specifications as Sean Springs. He looks for the big hit, doesn't he?
He's a football player. He reminded me a lot of Lester Hayes, the former Raider. Very tough, physical cornerback. You watch him game in and game out, just make dynamic